Okay, welcome back to our final panel of the day, the production panel. A huge thank you to everyone who took time out of their day to join us for ClusterCon 2, Visitors of the World. My name is Zoe. You might remember me from some of the panels at the first ClusterCon. I'll be moderating this panel alongside Cassie, who I'm sure you all know from the fabulous merch she's put out in her store. We are so excited to be here with all of you guys, and thrilled to be hosting this panel.
This event couldn't have happened without everyone, and it has first and foremost been proof of LockNation's love and dedication to the books, the show, and each other. Without further ado, we'd like to introduce our guests. Our first guest is someone who has shown so much kindness and enthusiasm in interacting with our community. He joins us from a secret location where he's filming an announcement for Stranger Things, after which he starts work directing Treasure Island for Paramount Plus. But we know him as the director of Lockwood Co episodes 2, 3, and 4. He's now been kind enough to join us for not one, but two ClusterCons. Calling from half a world away, please join me in welcoming back William McGregor.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Right, excellent. Next, she's known for helping to develop the Lockwood swagger and half a dozen other character quirks we all know and love. An accomplished actress herself, you can see the subtle but powerful influence of her coaching work on screen. Please welcome Gilly Tompkins.
Hello.
Wonderful. Okay, so last one. Finally, she's known for playing the intractable, sometimes irascible, and entirely lovable relic girl Florence Bonnard, aka Flo Bones. Please welcome Hayley Konadu.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hello. So wonderful to have you all here. Wonderful. How are you guys doing tonight? I know we're in a few different time zones on this one as well.
Yeah.
You
Great.
will.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we're ready to get started. We've got some fun things planned. Our first question, just to get things started, warm us all up, icebreaker. Could you tell us a bit about how you all came to work on Lockwood Co?
Oh, good question. I can go first.
Go on, Hayley.
Yeah, it's a bit of a short answer, but I auditioned. Yeah, I got sent through the casting call for Flo through my agent, and I auditioned. It was a really fun, and I'd always say, like, I've done millions of auditions, but I'd credit that audition process as the most fun audition process I've had to date, I'd say. Yeah, and I'll get into that later, but yeah.
I mean, that's really saying something too, because from what I've heard,
Yeah.
it's usually not a fun process.
I know, literally.
Really, really great to hear.
Yeah.
Shall I go next?
Yeah, Gilly. Let's do Gilly next.
It was lockdown. I'm an actor. I've done directing. I've done acting coaching, but I didn't have a job. I really didn't have a job. I was bored stiff. And my dear friend Jill McCulloch, who's a dialect coach to the stars, messaged me and just said, I'm going to be working on this thing called Lockwood Co. Do you want to do it? And I was just like, 100% yes. So I'd never read the books. I didn't know anything about it. And then I went, and that was it. That's how I got involved.
Nice.
Wonderful. Yeah, so you've sort of come into it a different direction. That's really cool.
And then, yeah, I guess for myself, it was a classic thing of, you get sent the scripts. And in that point of time, coming out of lockdown, there was a lot of productions starting to shoot again. But this one just really stood out to me, partly because I was a massive fan of the Bite of Mayus trilogy. So having read Jonathan Stroud's work as a teenager, the idea that I got to then bring another one of his worlds, help bring that to life, was just sort of too exciting of an opportunity to miss out on, really. So went through the usual process of lots of meetings and pitches and mood boards and trying to convince Complete Fiction I was the right director to join the team. So yeah, fortunately, we all got to be involved.
Yes, you've had an audition process sort of yourself as well. It's nice to know you came from the fan side too. You know, you're one of us originally, even though you're,
Yeah, exactly.
very cool.
Okay, so our next question is for Gilly. Perhaps some tea over on Twitter asks, for those of us at home who may not know, what role does an acting coach play on the set, and what are some ways we can see your unique influence on the screen?
Gosh, good question. I'm with notes because I can talk. So believe me, I've got pages. So I would say the simplest way to say what an acting coach does, a choreographer does dance moves, and an acting coach helps the actor improve and enhance their performance through building confidence, analyzing the text, looking at voice modulation, body language, emotional expression. And on set, they're there to translate a director's vision to performance, really. So you're helping the actor find their authentic self. So an actor's only got their body and voice, that's all they've got to work with. Nothing wrong with that. But you want them always to be bringing their authentic self and not performing a character, trying to find them to get their natural performance, which is different and that's layered. So you don't want an actor that's mumbling, you want a clear emotional journey. And the unique influence on set, I don't think I can take credit for that, but Jill and I worked with every single actor that came on that set. And that was just such a huge privilege. And there were actors who didn't need coaching. You know, there's actors there with so much experience. Or they might just want a little bit, or they might just want confidence building. And then you've got actors there who've never worked before as actors, as jobs, and who are very scared to come on. It takes a lot to come onto a big set. There's 90 on the crew. It's formidable. It can be overwhelming, and that's where I think an acting coach can help. So sometimes when you're playing a smaller part, you don't get all the scripts. You get a redacted script, so you're just getting your little chunk. So if Mrs. Hope is coming on for episode 1, she's just getting her scenes. She might not know what happens in that episode or what happens in any of the episodes, and she also might not have read the books. And that's really important because she's coming into a world and she'll have been practicing at home in her bedroom, getting her character ready. And she comes in and her house style, for want of a better word, doesn't fit. So I always think if you think of Ruby as our baseline, Ruby, the actress, is so real, starting with her, everybody's got to link with that, you know? So you can't come on and be pantomimic and huge, but you can be a bigger character. So I think of Sebastian Saunders, the wonderful Jeff Rawle. That's quite a big performance. He's quite comedic, he's quite loud and fun, but it's really based in truth. So with our core 3, with Ruby, Cameron and Ali, we had, I mean, it was such a privilege. We had 6 weeks rehearsal. And in that rehearsal, we had big sheets up on the wall. I can remember that. And we'd be thinking about, we discussed, you know, what's it like to look at a type 1, a type 2, a type 3. We'd inhabit the whole world. We'd have Brad come in to do hot seating. So him and Rachel knew so much about all the books, all the scripts. So we were able to say, you know, what does that mean? And what's behind the door? And so we were all singing from the same hymn sheet. And then when we get on set, we've got all that nuance. And then as an acting coach, we go in and we remind the actors what we've rehearsed, if you like, and remind them of those little subtleties of character. We also had to work out how are they going to express their talents. So, you know, if your talent is hearing, are you going to crack your ears? You know, we thought, oh no, that's ridiculous. So I remember we spent days thinking about it, and we decided that they'd all just breathe in, center, breathe out, and then they're into their talent. And you can see that when Ruby, when Lockwood and Lucy first go into Mrs. Hope's house, they do that tuning in. But of course, we will have worked on that and decided that as a team. Then when you go on set, I'm giving you an example now of nuance. I think the acting coach is there for the nuance, because you're not directing, you're not the director, you're giving the director something, and it's up to the director if he or she wants it. But in the episode where Lucy goes for her interview, where she gate crashes to try and get the job, Lockwood says to Lucy, "You've heard of us?" And she says no. Now, you could have two actors just looking shocked, two characters just looking at her shocked, but it's wonderful because in that moment, Lockwood has a wry smile and he's really intrigued by Lucy. And you can see he loves her directness and her honesty. And I think in that moment, he thinks, yeah, she'd be perfect for this agency. Whereas George is stood next to him looking completely miffed and a bit cross, because he's completely like, how dare she say that? You know, so they're the subtleties. So when the question was asking for unique things, they're the things we're looking for throughout the script. What else do I want to tell you? Oh yeah, on set. So how acting coach works, we have you imagine a great big like pub, a TV you'd see at a pub, like a 50-inch screen. That's what we have as our screen to look at, with a table, and you're sat there with the writers if they're visiting, or you're with the producers. Brad's there with us all the time to help us with everything, what's come before in a scene, what's coming next. And obviously my job, I'm not looking at the lighting or the sound or anything, I'm just looking at them. I'm literally analysing in them if they've lost concentration, if they look tired, if they need a drink of water. I've got to know them so well that I'm rushing in and going, are you tired? Yeah, I'm a bit tired. Okay. You know what I mean? That's part of my job as well, the overseeing of the person who's expected to do very long hours and have a lot of, and always be ready. And it's also different as an acting coach working with different directors. Some directors don't want to see an acting coach coming into the space. So you've got to go in and give your notes between scenes. So you've got to literally slide in, whisper something and slide out. But with Joe Cornish, he quite liked having me by his side. So I'd be looking at his monitor and I could say, oh, I think this has happened, and he's slouching and I can't hear, that's a mumble. And then he would tell me to go in. With Catherine, she liked me to give the notes to her, and then she only went in. So the actor only had one person. Otherwise, the actor might have me going in, Jen going in, talking about physicality, the director's going in. There's a lot of people going in on those actors, giving them notes. And then with Will, I think I slid in between takes. I think that's how I worked with Will. So I hope that answers it.
Yeah, so it sounds like there are actually like a lot of elements to what you do. There's kind of a psychological element, there's obviously the tutoring element, the practice partner, being almost an intermediary in some senses, it seems like, as well. So you'll have a finger in every pie, or whatever the expression is. So you're
almost like a counsellor as well, because I would go in at 7:30. Filming doesn't start till 8, but I would go in at 7:30. I mainly worked with Lockwood and George. Ruby didn't need it. Ruby didn't want me to run lines with her. And you have to respect that as well. But you're going in and you're seeing what their mood is, and you're reading their mood, and you're seeing what they're like that day. And sometimes they're just exhausted. So you're there to support them and say, come on, it's okay, we've got this today. And you're running lines with them, you're building confidence. And other days they don't need you so much. So you're like a mother, a counsellor. I mean, Hayley knows what Hayley can say, can't you, as an actor, what it's like to have a coach.
Yeah, 100%.
The wellness is a big part of it. That's really interesting, because I trained as a counsellor, and a lot of what you're describing to me does sound very similar, of kind of monitoring people and their moves, like checking in periodically, like seeing their wellness, anticipating what needs they might have. So that's all really cool.
And I also think because it's going to be seen in the eyes, the camera is the eye, the face. And if that person's suffering about something outside of the production, it's good if they can express it to someone, they can get it off their chest so they can go and do their job, because they are only human. Actors are human, they're not superhuman. And I think it's nice to have that someone who's a confidant and, like you say, an intermediary between all the groups. And I learned that the hard way, because sometimes a producer or a director would ask me, and Jill would say to me, don't give your opinion. And I thought you were honest and gave your opinion, but sometimes it doesn't help. You have to read them as well, because they're creatives and they say, do you think that works? And I go, oh, I don't know. And then I could see their, a director's face crumble. I think, oh, I shouldn't have said. So I really had to learn that you're reading everybody, and you're keeping, like a counsellor, you're keeping everybody happy.
Yeah, very, very similar in that sense of like meeting everyone where they're at, and kind of customizing, tailoring your approach to each person you're working with. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing all that. Like, I had an idea of what an acting coach was, but I didn't have I didn't understand the full breadth of what you were doing.
They're quite new in England. They're not new in America. All my American friends have acting coaches. My English friends are still a bit, especially older actors, are like, oh, I don't need an actor. How dare you? As if they're not good enough at acting. And I don't think that is, you wouldn't say that about a choreographer. You would just presume they would improve your performance. But I wonder if it will become a more common thing in this country.
Yeah, no. So, like, the coach element's almost a misnomer, because you're not necessarily just teaching acting. You're serving all sorts of functions.
Yeah,
really cool. Hayley, do you have any thoughts on acting coaches? I know it's not on the script, but
section about Gilly. No, I had a whole section I've written, because I've also written it, because I know I can go off on wild tangents. But prior to coming on to Lockwood Co, like this, I would say Lockwood Co was one of my biggest jobs to date. I had done like TV work, but I was like one line here or an episode here, but not like a sort of a supporting lead. So coming on to Lockwood and then hearing that I'm going to have an acting coach, in fact, 2 acting coaches to help guide me. I had never heard of that before. So at first I got quite sort of self-conscious, because I was like, can I not act? Like, am I bad? But then my agent reassured me, and she was like, well, you wouldn't have got the job if you can't act. But they're just there to, they've been there throughout the whole process, and they're just there to sort of help you, coach you, guide you, and they know the world best. And having done that process, I'm all in favor of acting coaches. Like, I feel like it's such, like, as Gilly beautifully described, like it was like having a counselor. Every time I came off, like, done a scene, I was like, Gilly, help. What am I doing? And even sometimes Gilly would run up to me and say, Hayley, I see your energy is going up. You need an orange. Have an orange. You need an orange. She'd always give me an orange. It would just boost up my energy. So yeah, echo everything that Gilly said. I think having her and Jill there, not necessarily just drawing the character out, because as Gilly said, like, I had made a decision about who Flo was, and they helped me really draw her out even more, and like play and explore up until the end of shooting of like, who's Flo? Like, how does she stand? What like, let's explore within the world that we're working with. So I think it was super useful, super helpful. I'm so super grateful. I always say I'm so super grateful for Gilly, because honestly, even in post-production, doing ADR, again, thinking about how can we add even more to the character. So yeah.
Wonderful. So kind of developing the character as well. That's really cool.
For sure.
So just so I don't get too bogged down, because I'm really fascinated by all this. The next question we have is for Hayley. It's from Jinx the Banshee on Instagram. Can you tell us, we're actually already kind of talking about it, but can you tell us about your process for learning about your character and bringing her to life?
For sure. So I'll start from like when I got the audition got the audition through. I never heard of Lockwood Co, Jonathan Stroud. So I got the audition through, and they sent sort of like a breakdown of the sort of book, like all the plot, and then a breakdown of the character. So I think from then on, I wasn't going to read the book just because I didn't want to, in terms of my process, I didn't want to kind of have too many ideas. I was like, I just want to read this breakdown and like sort of make a decision and go from there. But I did read a few things that were online from the fans. Fans, you've been super helpful in terms of like creating sort of fan art and like writing little sort of cool breakdowns about characters and stuff. So that was very, very useful. And I kind of used that as that sort of a base and an anchor through my audition process. And then when I got the role, I read the first two books for context, which was super useful just to get to know the character a little bit more, get to know the world, especially because Jonathan has created such a detailed and such a nuanced world. So I wanted to get my sort of head around it. And then I started with every process with any character I get, started writing facts and questions. So what are the facts about my character and what questions do I have that are not answered in the script or even in the book? And then through that, I started sort of writing a diary about Flo. Like, so what would she do every day? So we see her like in these moments, but what's she doing outside of those moments? What does she do when she wakes up? What does she do in the afternoon? Like, what does she love the most? What does she hate the most? So I started writing sort of like done a character sort of breakdown, character list, and then sort of a diary. And then actually, I thought was really cool. I dug it out. I found it's kind of like my Lockwood Co Bible a little bit, but I got given a folder and I found it. I still have it. I don't know if you can see. Oh no, you can't.
The background spoiling you. Oh, you
Ah,
can't see it.
I like wrote like lots of
Oh,
post-its on my like. This is like the script. I can show
Love
it
it.
now. It's but
very
like I
cool.
real like sort of yeah, went in on the script and like sort of just wrote down yeah, just different. I really wanted to make, really wanted Flow to feel like lived in and detailed because I wanted to do the book and the series justice. And with the help of Gilly as well and Jill, because obviously they knew it, I came in quite late to the process. So my block, they filmed it in blocks and mine was sort of the last block to shoot. So everyone had a real good grasp of the world and I was a bit like, oh, and also being my first job as well, I was just like super nervous. But everyone made it so like welcoming and they fed me lots and lots of information, which was so useful and so uh, like helpful as an actor. Um, what else about my process? I did travel to where I went to the River Thames, like just to like look at it. And I saw people mudlarking as well. I've done a lot of research on mudlarking because Flo's a mudlark. Just to like really understand her habitat and her environment. Um, yeah, I think, yeah.
Was your first scene when you were with the bike? Do you remember that? You had to get on the bike.
Oh yes, that was my first scene. Yeah, it was so my first scene was my first scene that I shot was the last scene between me and George, me and Ali, and where George asks me out for do you want to go herons and ice cream? And I just write off as yes, that was oh God, yeah, my gosh, that was
Much
fun.
beloved scene. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
much love.
That was a really sort of fun first scene to shoot. I remember when I first got the job as well, I think it was Naira, she was like, can you ride a bike? And I was like, yes, I can. Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you did so much work. It really shows, but like hearing it is, we obviously see the work you did,
Mm,
as subtext, but you did so much as well. Like you went to her home turf, you went to the Thames. That's where she lives.
yeah,
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
yeah. I think it's because I again I said as I say, like, because the world is so detailed and so like nuanced and interesting, I really wanted to bring that into it. And I think Flo, in some ways we're alike, but in some ways we're very different. So I was like, I don't want it to be a caricature on screen. And also I yeah, I want her to feel quite lived in. So
Yeah, capturing that really real person underneath
Yeah, I think so.
She's very,
And I
very
think
layered that way.
the costume was really exciting. I remember you getting that and being so excited,
Yeah.
inspired for the character,
Yes.
weren't you?
Yes. Yeah. Claire, she was working with Claire was great. Just like we had like a long, not long, but I would say about 2 weeks I was going back and forth to costume, just trying on different costumes, what would Flo wear, and we sort of settled on like sort of 2 or 3 outfits I had throughout the 3 episodes I'm in. But as soon as I got that and that was confirmed, I felt like, okay, here we are, this is Flo, and that informed then my physicality, which then informed my sort of delivery. So yeah.
Yeah, the costume really, really does. Clothes really bring a person to life in a unique way.
For sure.
Definitely. I think the next question is for Will. I think Cassie.
Yeah. So, well, when working on book to screen adaptations, do you typically just work from the scripts, or do you also draw inspiration from the source material?
Definitely a lot of inspiration from the source material, because I think that's where the tone and atmosphere comes from. And if you're talking about world building and how you become a part of building that world, you really have to know the original material that you're working with. Obviously, on a day-to-day level on set, your gospel is your script, but you obviously, especially in this case, trust that the writers have put the same kind of faith in the source material, and that source material is now in your script, and it's a faithful adaptation. But when framing up a shot, or when looking at how to stage a scene, or when looking at finding the right locations, having read the book, it kind of always stays with you, even if it's just via osmosis. You've absorbed it, and it's become a part of the kind of tapestry of your references for the scenes you're directing. So it's always kind of there with you. I think the kind of stuff that I loved reading as a teenager are basically the type of things that I now, bring to life on screen. So I think there's obviously a part of that teenage kid who just loves sitting on his bedroom floor reading, spooky young adult fiction and fantasy that is still there today, now making TV. So it's quite fun.
Yeah, no, I definitely see like that. I don't want to say vibe, it's not the right word. I'm sure there's an industry term, but I definitely see that in cohesively in your work, that kind of origin of that spooky, that teenager reading spooky stories. Definitely, it's got that folk feeling almost. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and we have spoken to the writers, Joy. Well, we've spoken to Joy, and it does feel like they really gave you something good to work with as well. That's wonderful. Right. So our next question is for everyone, and this can stay just between us. There's not hundreds of people watching, and no one will ever find out. The Biscuit Rule on Twitter asks, did you keep any mementos from the set?
Yes.
What?
Is it classified? Is it a secret?
It would be classified
Do you want
within
to
the
whisper it?
world of the show. No, so
Okay.
on the last day, I went down into the basement where all of the anything that you might need to repelling a ghost was kept. I didn't steal a sword. I feel like that might have been too much. But let's just say if I do have a visitor in my office at home, sadly I can't show you because I'm in a hotel room. But I have enough ammunition to protect myself from any future attacks, which in truth are cardboard tubes with a wick coming out of it, and some very nice graphic design. But they certainly look good on the shelf, and I'd like to think they'd help me out if I was in a sticky situation with some visitors.
Definitely. Always prepared. I like that. Yeah.
I didn't take anything. I wish I did.
I was going to say, missed
I
opportunity.
think we thought we were going to go again. So I thought,
I
oh,
didn't
better
want to
not
say that. I didn't want to say
Do you know
that.
what I mean? I was thinking, I better not go in the house. There were some amazing things in Lockwood's house. The kitchen was wonderful. I would have taken the teapot. But I think, yeah, we thought, oh, it's going again. I better not nick anything. It'll all be needed.
And that's exactly why I took something small that was effectively a cardboard tube, because I was like, I didn't want to take anything that would be used in season 2. Yeah.
Gilly, if you're talking about the cottage teapot, I'm completely there with you. I would have stolen that, absolutely.
Exactly that.
No, I
Did you
didn't.
take anything?
No, I didn't take anything. But again, like, which was really like lovely, but also sad. They were doing like a clear out, and they emailed me. They were like, do you want any of like your costume? And they sent me. And I don't think you saw on the, well, if you have like really laser vision eyes, I don't know. But Flo wore underneath her
We do.
boots these burgundy socks, like knitted socks. They were like really lush socks. I think they're really spenny as well. Claire was telling me that they bought them from like, I don't know, the Queen's shop. Like there's a shop in Buckingham Palace apparently, and they bought these socks that Flo wore. And
What, royal
they were
socks?
like
That's
really,
amazing.
yeah, they were really comfy.
Royal Cashmere.
Royal Cashmere. Annoyingly, I can't find them. I was like literally rummaging to try and find them today. I don't know where I don't know where they are, but they sent them to me. So yeah, that's something that I've got from set, I guess. But I didn't take anything. Yeah.
Yeah, weirdly, I've got something actually that I didn't steal from set. Not directly at least, but when they were doing the clear out, they sent us a few small things that they couldn't house anymore. I wasn't planning on this, is unplanned, but yeah, they sent us, I got one of these. One of my prized
Oh,
You've got a
possessions now.
mixtape.
Yeah, it says
Hey.
Nice.
You've
Lucy's
got a
Ultimate on the back.
mixtape.
This was
Norrie's
my
mixtape.
payment for the ClusterCon last time. Essentially.
Lovely.
I
Prized
remember
possession now.
standing tweaking those to camera on the close-up as the camera moves past them in her room. Fond memories.
Well, rest assured, it's gone to a good home. I value it very much. So, yeah. Apparently, I've stolen something from set. So, all right. I think
Okay, so our next question comes as a pre-recorded video from Steph_M442 over on Instagram.
Hi, my name's Steph. I'm from England, and my question's for Gilly. How did you help each actor get into character? Like, were there any specific techniques or aspects of the character's personality that you focused on?
Another good question. Reaching for notes yet again. So, obviously the scripts are our Bible, and we cannot presume that anybody who's watching has read Jonathan's brilliant books. So, the techniques we would use on every single scene for actors, definitely for our core 3, and for people like Hayley, and if there was time for people just coming in for playing a small part, we would ask who, what, where, when, and why. So who am I? You're asking the character, who am I? So you understand the character's identity, the history of the character, the relationships. What am I responding to? So the identity of specific circumstances that they're in the scene, who they're speaking to, and what's just happened before. We would ask the where am I? So that's obviously where are they physically and emotionally set, where is the scene set, and where have they just been? When is it? So the specifics of the scene, it can be literal, it can be, is it morning, is it night, is it evening? Are you on a boat? Are you outside? Are you inside? It's going to make a difference to the character. And why am I saying this? So you're determining the character's motivation and objective. So that's the very literals, that we would use as techniques. And also the how the character's feeling. So from all those questions, you're going to get hopefully, the emotional truth of a character. So you're analysing the text. I mean, I don't know if we did this with you, Hayley, but we would look at the text and click our fingers when it's a comma and clap when it's the end of a sentence. Can you remember doing that, Hayley?
We probably did, but I don't remember.
Probably didn't do that. We didn't need to do that with you. And that's just so that sometimes the script can be really daunting to an actor. And so they just rush through all the lines, and people like, poor George has got so many involved speeches that he's got to make sound like they're really easy. So by putting a click when it's a comma, the actor naturally takes a breath And by putting a clap when it's the end of a sentence, the actor just stops, and it just slows down the mind of the actor. And sometimes the actor's trying to show you they've learnt the lines, so they're just going through it really quickly. So if you make them click and you make them clap, it just slows them down. One of the things we had, I'm not going to name names, but because it was a young cast, one of the things we really had to look at was Americanisms. Because young actors watch a lot of American things, I'm not very good at it, but their voice goes up all the time. So even when they're talking, like now, I'm on a Zoom, you listen, you think something just doesn't sound right, because it never lands. The voice never just drops and goes to a normal level. It's just always in an upward inflection. So we really had to work on that. And that's not a technique, that's just calling it out and repeating to them, we've gone American. I come from a theatre background, so I worked a lot with a director called Barry Rutter, who's an actor manager, a big old Yorkshireman. And he talks about hitting the pronoun. So a lot of young actors, I'm trying to think of the scene, but if an actor was saying, I'm making a cup of tea, you want one. And there's only two people in the room, and the actor would be turning to the kettle anyway and going, I'm making a cup of tea, do you want one? And they would just go to the end of the sentence. So it's a young thing, and I have a theory that it's because Instagram, hi, I'm on Instagram, and here I am on a Zoom talking to you. I think there's a lot of pronoun stuff going on in social media, and I think it's seeped into acting. So you can see it when you're watching other things. You'll see people hitting the pronoun. So in that 6 weeks, we were able to say, I, you, we'd call it out. There's also a habit of people hitting the and the but in a sentence. So if you've got a long sentence, you're halfway through it. But isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is usually at the end of the sentence. So sometimes the technique is just pulling the actor up on that. We had this joke I'm not going to swear. We used a swear word, but I'll call it chuff, it's a chunk. So we get in the script. Can you remember this, Hayley?
Yeah,
if an actor gets a great chunk of script, even if you're going dialogue between two people, when the actor sees this great big chunk, they go, and they take a big breath, and then they launch into it. And often they do the first line. So I'm trying to think, so when Lockwood does his speech in episode 4, when he says, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, he's at the top of the stairs and he's talking to the sensitives. It's a chunk. And so what sometimes an actor will do is read it, decline. Each time they speak, they go down a line. So it's almost like that. They get to the end and it's finished. And the only thing with that rhythm, it doesn't sound very exciting. So Barry Rutter taught me this thing called climbing the stairs. So if he goes, he starts here with the script and he says, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If I could have your attention for one moment. My name is Anthony Lockwood of Lockwood Co, and I'm here with the team to assist you tonight. And let me assure you, and by rising, it's such a small thing, but it sounds exciting. And I don't know why, but if someone does a great big speech and they go down instead, it sounds dull. Does that make sense? I don't know if it's all making sense.
Yeah,
So
it does.
Yeah.
Gilly, I'm learning right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm checking these out because there's so many. Oh,
I was enjoying your reading.
Thanks, Claire. Acting with props can be hilarious. I remember once Ali going, he's got his drink, and he went and did this. I said, I ran on set. I said, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm trying to show it's hot. And I said, well, don't. We're not looking at that in the scene, So sometimes actors with props can be interesting. So you've got to bring them to a sense of where they're using the prop instead of signalling the prop. So Ali does something in episode 5.
Sorry.
Somebody's got a dog.
I hope
Um,
so, yeah.
I hope so. In episode 5, Lockwood tells him to go back to the archives, and he comes out the crypt, and he looks at his watch, and then he goes down the stairs, and me and Brad were looking at it. It was, I think it's a night shoot, and we just kept saying, "What's wrong?" We did another take, and he came out, and he looked at his watch, and then he went down the, oh, what is wrong? And then I went in and said to Ali, "What time is it?" He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "What time is it?" He said, "Well, how do I know?" I said, "Well, you're looking at your watch." And of course, he wasn't. He was acting looking at his watch. So the next take, I went, "What time is it?" And he went, "Oh, 20 past 3." So it's things like that. You know, it's not even techniques. It's just detail. Oh, and I think one of the main things on this cast, because everybody got on so well. Oh my God, all the Fitz crew, they loved Quill Kipps. They just got on too well. So sometimes I'd have to go on and say, "Stop liking each other so much." Because of course it shows. It's just, so it's not an acting technique, but it's just saying, "Stop getting on so well," you know. What was the second part of the question? Was there a second part to that question?
Excellent question. Let's see.
Which techniques or aspects of the characters' personalities that you focused on?
Aspects of the characters. I will stop talking. I'll just do Lockwood, because I think otherwise we'll be here all night. So, what aspects of the characters' personalities we worked on? So we would continually, with Lockwood, we would remind him that he's secretive. He's carrying a lot of trauma from his past. In episode 4, I think we're told that he was orphaned at the age of 6. So we looked at how close is he really going to let people come into his life, because he might lose them. He's a showman. He loves going on telly. He loves fame. He loves reputation. He's a gentleman. So the first time he sees Lucy, he's in his own home, and he stands up in the library to receive her. He's like really old school, very polite, very well mannered. These are all things we would remind, come on, you know, in each scene, sort of thing. He's got an innate confidence. So he's got an innate confidence in his own ability, and holds very high standards. But then as a character, he holds high standards of others. So his expectation of others could be looked at as being too high, you know, of other people. He's got a darkness to his character. So he understands Lucy when she says, "I'd be better off dead." You know, there is a darkness that comes with that secretiveness. Physically, he's a brilliant swordsman, and he's got the gift of sight. So they're all things that we would, as coaches, we could go on. If we saw Cam's confidence falter, we'd just go on and remind him. Anyway, sorry, so detailed. As you can see, I do a detailed job.
You have a rapt audience right now, I promise.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
I'm speaking for myself, at least. That's amazing. Yeah, and I think you really captured there too what we all love so much about the Lockwood character as well. Like you really delved into that. Amazing. Let's see. Our next question is for Hayley from 27_Zoe_T on Twitter. Different Zoe. She's great. I've met her. I adored your portrayal of Flo, particularly the self-assuredness and strength she had without erasing her empathy and softness. Did you bring any unique elements of yourself to your portrayal of the character?
Yes. Did I? So can you repeat the last question, the last part of that question?
Yeah, like, did you bring any elements of yourself into your portrayal of the character?
Yes. Sorry, I thought you said that, but then I was like, I just second-guessed myself for 1 second. Yes, I did. I think. Thank you so much, Zoe, for that lovely compliment as well. I really, really appreciate that. I think again, I wrote like notes on this as well, and I feel like Gilly, Gilly was a massive help. I'm just gonna give credit Gilly. Gilly was a massive help in me really finding and sort of exploring who Flo was. I think in terms of the softer side of Flo and the more sort of empathetic side of Flo, I think that was easier to access for myself because I think that comes more naturally to me. I think the quite hard, gritty, grounded, sort of doesn't give a heck about anything. I had to explore that more, a little bit more, and I had to really explore that actually, firstly, physically. So Jen was a massive help as well in terms of like thinking of physically like groundedness and like how does flow stand. You know, I know I do remember like before takes, I'd either like crouch down to the floor, like really like crouch down like a sumo wrestler, or like sort of stand there and really just because she stands so differently to me, like she holds her weight so differently to me. So I had to really sort of explore that physically. And again, in my little book here, I was looking through it, reminiscing today, and I have like I don't know if you can see, it's oh you can't see it, but
Background
it's
spoiled us
lyrics.
again. Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's lyrics. It's Shirley Bassey's I Am What I Am. I don't know if you remember, Julie. We were playing around with Flo. And like just I think I was really figuring out sort of who this hard, like gritty relic woman was. And Jill McCulloch, she came with Shirley Bassey's song called I Am What I Am. She was like, listen to this, learn it, and you're gonna perform it. And I was like, okay. But it was quite like it was really sort of, I guess, freeing and yeah, it really gave me an idea of like Flo, she speaks in facts. I remember going through the script with Gilly and we were like going through the lines of like, that's a fact, that's a fact. There is no sort of question mark or trepidation in what Flo says. Everything she says is like fact, it's final. She has a sort of a self-assuredness in herself. So once I found that and I married it together with the softer side or the more vulnerable side to her. And I think with it all, thinking about it, I was like, she at the bottom of it, Flo just cares. And that care might look like quite like a bit direct, but her directness is because she cares so much and because she knows the world so much. She has such a view of the world. I think she knows the world a lot more than all the other characters in a sense that she knows how messed up the world is. So in that, she's had to sort of build up her guard. And that's why she sort of speaks in these kind of sort of facts. And there is no kind of, I guess, yeah, not fear, I would say, because I do think she is quite fearful, but like there's no, you can't get through, like you can't see through her, if that makes sense. Like she's very guarded. So I really had fun exploring that because that's so opposite to me. And once I really got into the zone of that, I was like, oh, we're playing, we're playing. And then Gilly would be there, like, just reminding me, this is a fact, fact, fact. So that was, yeah, that's, I guess, how I incorporated some of my own sort of personality into Flow. I would say the more softer side, but then really exploring what am I like when I don't care what other people think? What am I like when I don't care what I do? And I even had to bring that onto set. Like Gilly and Jill would really encourage me to be like, you know what, before a take, it's your time. You don't have to talk to others. You can just get in the zone, do what you need to do. And I was like, oh, but that's embarrassing. I don't want to like do stuff to like get myself into characters. And then I was like, well, no, Flo wouldn't care. So I would just jump and then they'd be like action and then I'd go in or I'd crouch down or I'd like just scream or do something to like really allow me to just come into the character like sort of front-footed. And it really helped with my portrayal and my delivery. So yeah.
Can I say something? I think Hayley's such a lovely person naturally and so kind. You can see and smiley and sweet. I can remember in ADR when we're re-recording dialogue, and I'm going, "Be a bitch, be a bitch to her, be horrible, honestly, because you're so nice, and I really have to push you." And then when you really were strong and be really in that powerful strength, a character displays, you know.
Yeah.
Love that insight that, she's a young woman who's been hardened by hardship, but the reason she's been hardened is because she cares and because she has that empathy. So I really love that insight into the character. Cassie, I'm sorry. Have I been talking too much?
You're good.
Okay, feel free to interrupt me.
No. Yeah, I really love that about Flo, not caring what people think. I think that's really inspiring. Something we could all learn from.
For sure. Yeah, I was really inspired by Flo, and I was like, sometimes in life, I'm like, Hayley, what would Flo do in this moment? Like, just in different life moments, I'm like, be more Flo, come on.
She's with you still. Yeah, that's great.
For sure. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so our next question is for Will. The Biscuit Rule on Twitter says that she loves the framing used in the interrogation room scene with Lockwood and Barnes in the second episode. How Lockwood's on the left and Barnes is on the right. And can you share a little bit about your thought process behind composing the scene or any other memories from shooting it? Because it's one of her favorites.
That's really nice. Thank you. It's one of those scenes where the space kind of spoke to me, and it was a bit of a surprise space. So we filmed in central London in this big, I think it's QE2 building, and we used it for loads of different locations. And we're walking around it and looking for something for this interrogation room. And we find ourselves down in the basement in what is actually an old recording facility that is like straight out of the 70s with strange sound dampening walls and like mesh over the walls and just sort of really unusual and unique. And it was just full of chairs. So we pulled the chairs out, and we just stood back and took it in, and it just had this kind of sparseness to it. And you could really just see the scene then when you're stood in the space of how you can play these two characters against each other, both wanting to hide something, both trying to learn something, and how you could just put them either side of the screen and composed really within this caged box that they're in, which magically matched Marcus's brilliant production design elsewhere in the show, but really was just one of those incredible locations that we found by mistake, which just enhanced the scene. And so many of your camera decision making based on when you're putting the camera is about what the character's feeling, but sometimes a space really enhances that. And that was certainly one of those sort of happy accidents. If we'd have built a set, maybe we'd have shot it more traditionally, but it was a nice surprise in a way to discover that.
Yeah, that what's it called? Like that brutalist style of the 70s really inspired how you chose to direct that scene.
Yeah. And you want to spend as much time as possible on the floor with the actors, not driving for an hour, doing a unit move to a new space. And so to be in this big building, QE2, which served us as so many different locations in one, just meant that you were able to spend more time with the cast, more time filming, and then actually out of that necessity, you found something quite interesting. It was DPRAC's HQ as the main location. That's what we used it for. But then we had to find other locations within that big building that would also work for us.
Yeah, I love those moments where like serendipity is what inspired a creative decision. That's great.
Yeah.
I believe our next question, hang on, is for all the panelists. Needles and Witches from Twitter asks, what were your most challenging and most favorite scenes to shoot and why? You all are so polite. Want me to call on someone?
I think I can go first. I think my most my most challenging scene, and I think I mentioned this in like a LockNation meetup last year, but I think my most challenging scene was when we first meet Flo in episode 5, because I remember, I don't know if you remember, Gilly, that night it was like it was in the middle of January. So those that are not from
Freezing.
the UK, in the middle of January is freezing cold in the middle of the night, and we're on the River Thames, and we like the time was tight, like we only had a certain amount to shoot before the tide came in. And it was Lucy was being chased, and then she falls, and then basically it's the introduction of Flo. And I had to get that take right. Otherwise, if the tide came in, then that's it, it was done. And we did it, but then also we had to also film green screen as well because of like sort of different takes and stuff. But I just remember
And you had
like, and then
props, didn't you? Loads
the
of
props,
props.
the props. Oh
Props.
my God. It was just a lot happening at once. So you had that, then you had like the amount of props she had this sort of big satchel where she was carrying all of her mudlark things, and then she had her boots and a jacket, and it was just a lot. And then it was like action, and then she had this licorice which was frozen because it was so cold, but had to sort of eat it afterwards. It's like, was it Evelyn Lockie? What was it?
Who's
Who's
the
the
latest
slapper?
slapper?
Who's the latest slapper? Yeah,
Latest
who's the
slapper.
latest slapper? Then eat the licorice. And like I just wasn't the licorice was so I was like it wasn't coming off. So yeah, it was funny, but I remember at the time I was like, oh my God, I'm getting sacked. This is ridiculous. Um yeah, yeah. That was and I would say my most favorite scene to shoot. It wasn't a specific scene. Oh no, I've torn between two. I just remembered one.
You
I'd
can
say
have both.
can I have both? Okay. Definitely episode 6 with Cameron, because I only had met him for the first time the day before we was shoot. Yeah, we shot that scene. So we done a quick rehearsal the day before and then a quick rehearsal on the day. But like when we immediately done the rehearsal, there was just like instant like chemistry between us in terms of like, okay, these two have been like friends for years. Because when I was auditioning, when I done the chemistry read, it was with Ali. So that was quite fun, and like just sort of in between takes, getting to know Cameron, getting to know his experience on the show, because he had sort of been there for months, and months ago. So that was really fun in a sense of like that was my first sort of long all day shoot, doing that scene in Cam's house, in Lockwood's house. And then I'd say the boat scenes between me and Ali, for sure, because that was towards the end of the whole shooting of the show. And those boat scenes, funny enough, were filmed. Exterior was filmed on the River Thames. Interior filmed in Pinewood Studios. And what was hilarious was that in exterior it was cold. We were like, it was still January, freezing cold. Interior in Pinewood Studios in like, was it like a heated
A James
pool?
Bond studio or something.
Yeah, so like literally it was like going from extreme cold to extreme heat. So like after each take, like we'd like just take off all of our clothes because it was so hot. But that was really fun because I think by then I had really gotten into the flow of the character, and I was really enjoying her, which was such a shame. Like they cancelled it because I was like, oh, I know who this character is now. I can't wait for season 2, and I really can't wait to really get into it. But hey, yeah. So yeah, I'd say those are two of my sort of favorite scenes and challenging scenes. I'll stop talking.
Yeah, it's so funny to hear that you had like one day to become old friends with Cameron.
Yeah.
You pulled it off. I couldn't tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shall I go?
Yeah.
Please,
Are we
yeah.
all answering it? Are we all answering
Yeah,
this one?
yeah,
Yeah.
we'd love to hear from everyone. Yeah.
Well, as I was there for every single scene, I would say that you can see from watching it, my God, the night shoots. We did so many night shoots. And at the end of the job, Naira bought me a Gilly blanket because I was always cold. I had the thing, hot that. gloves thing. I was there, and then I also had the blanket that I sat around me. So they bought me a Gilly blanket because I always needed it. But that is so confusing because you arrive on set about 5 o'clock and people are going morning, and then you're eating curry at like 2:30 at night. Oh my god, I don't know if I ever got used to it, and it was freezing cold in the cemetery, and also a bit scary when you walk back to your car. You're literally walking through a cemetery. I always thought. Sometimes someone say, "Do you want to walk? You know, do you want me to walk you?" I go, "Yes, please," because it was scary, especially when you've been filming this. So I agree with you. Anything at night was just, trying to keep the joy and think, I'm really lucky to have this job. I'm absolutely freezing. And then favourite scenes. Oh my god, I've got so many. I think my favourite scene is the Barnes and Lockie scene. That one of them, because I remember the tension. I remember that Ivano, who plays Barnes, was in the West End at the time. And so what was lovely working with him is, because I come from theatre, there was a shorthand, and he's just so brilliant at grounding and being dramatic. And I used to sit with the sound operator, and he's seen everything, through the years. But when he filmed that scene, Will, it really went quiet in the crew. And it's not always like that. It was almost like hallowed silence, and everyone was watching. And Rudy, the soundman, turned to me and went, "So good." And that was a wonderful feeling because the whole crew had been affected. So you knew it was a powerful scene. Also, when Ben Compton came on, who plays Winkman, he did a load of improvising in the torture scene. With that machine where he goes, dun, 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 dun. He did loads of improvising around it, and that was exciting because he was just so used to being on camera, and he brought a wonderful, very generous energy to the set. So actors can infect the people around them. If you're a moody actor, you're going to bring a mood. If you're a joyous actor, you're bringing that joy. And the crew have been there all day, and they love it if an actor comes with an energy. I remember that. And I also remember going on a jolly. We all went to, I want to say Chicken Camden. I think that's where we filmed all the backstory for Lucy and her, when she's with Jacobs and her mum and everything. And that was really exciting because we're all on a trip together in a hotel, And Paul, who played Bobby, who played Paul, that was his first job. So that was exciting. And Sandra, who played Lucy's mum, she was a really lovely actor. So I suppose mine's more about feelings. My job is feelings. And so hate everything with Hayley because she's such a joy to work with. And so anybody you work with who's so happy to be there, it's just a joy. That's mine.
Wonderful. Yeah, you really lived the lifestyle of a agent. It sounds like back then.
Yes,
and so it was great. You had people to bring life and mood while you were living that what's portrayed to be a bleak existence, at least. I don't know, it wasn't there, but yeah, and you will.
I had a really lovely reunion recently because I got to direct Ruby again on set on another Netflix production, literally this month out in Canada, and I think it was just so lovely to see her again, and it just takes you back, but it certainly takes me back to the cold nights. But I think even chatting with Ruby about how does it feel like it's been 3 years, it honestly didn't feel like that at all. It feels like yesterday we were stood in the dark in a graveyard in the cold, but the attrition of that and almost the siege mentality of we're all in it together and we're freezing cold and we're doing this huge scene with massive wind machines blowing because there's a huge ghost coming out of the ground and getting everyone to look in the right direction at the ghost, and they all know where the ghost is whilst we try and work out the visual effects and the camera movement and what are we moving to next, and it's just started raining, or all of that is the hardest part, but also it's the fun part. And it's great when you're in a room with two actors and it can be about performance and the scene we've been talking about, the interrogation, and there's a joy in that, but there's also a joy in a kind of twisted joy and how tough it can be. And it's not you know, my dad's a farmer, he spends every day out in the cold, so I can't complain too much. But those sort of, where it takes a team effort to bring something together across performance, cinematography, visual effects, and you're doing it at night in the middle of a cemetery, I think is a special part of filmmaking. It's amazing. And getting to see everyone across your career as you continue, you bump into people and your paths cross, and it's lovely to have that shared experience to reminisce about.
Yeah, that's lovely. Like for all of you guys, it sounds like it was the people, it's the friends you made along the way, as they say. That's amazing.
Okay, so our next question is for Gilly, another one from the Biscuit Rule on Twitter. She asks, what do you think were the most challenging aspects for the actors in bringing their characters to life? And were there any areas you had to work harder on with them, or something that they nailed immediately that you can talk about?
Reaching for notes. Yes. Well, I suppose I can't speak for the actors. I think they would have to say what was the most challenging for them. But I would say from an outsider looking in and working with them, Ellie had such a hard part in the sense that George has so much knowledge that is so detailed that he shares at great speed and he knows inside out. And that was challenging at first. You know, I would go in and we'd run it because we had to run it so that it sounded as if he was talking about these things all the time. And also, the first scene Ali ever had to film was episode 8 with Jocelyn in the crypt. And that was challenging because he was scared. He was scared. He was scared there and set. And he's there with Lou. You know, Louise Brearley is a seasoned, accomplished actress. But of course, the scene worked because we could use that fear because he was fearful in the scene. So in a way, it was, used to great effect. And I think for Cam, the greatest challenge was confidence. I just don't think sometimes he could believe that he'd been given this job because he hadn't even completed drama school. He kept saying to me, some mornings I'd go in and he'd say, I didn't even do my final production at drama school. I said, well, yeah, don't worry. You don't need to. And I think perhaps because he hadn't done that process, done his final production, graduated with his friends, then gone for an audition. That hadn't happened for him. He'd been plucked out. So sometimes that was hard for him because he couldn't quite believe he was worthy of the job. And so that was challenging because I said, well, you're killing it. You're absolutely brilliant in it. And I think a challenge for Ruby, I don't know if she ever had a day off. I mean, I was there with her and she did like 9 months straight. And I remember thinking, oh, Cam's not here today or Ali's not here. Ruby was at. And if she wasn't, she was fighting, because she had to do all the stuff with the star as well. And obviously the guys weren't there for that bit. And she was there for all the Jacobs bit and the guys weren't there for that bit. So she did the months and months and months on that. And that was challenging. And I think in terms of nailing it, that was the next bit, wasn't it, the question? I think that Ali in episode 4 in Sweet Dreams, when he speaks to the Fix crew about Edmund Bickerstar, oh my God, he hit everything. He had a big speech, he had a it's a chunk. He climbed the stairs, as we talked about. He held court, he was confident, he shared the information in an exciting way. But above all, he enjoyed himself. And I remember going up to him at the end and going, oh, God, that was brilliant. And he didn't really have an idea that he was brilliant. He just said, I just really enjoyed it. But when you watch that scene, my God, you can see he's enjoying himself. He's just loving that scene. Hayley, I think, nailed. We had to do loads of ADR. We had to do loads of re-recording. And you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. And I also think maybe because you said like at the end of the job, you really inhabited the character. By the time you got to re-record some lines, you were flying because you just, am I right saying that?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right, Gilly. Yeah.
Nailing it because you're confident. You've seen yourself on screen and thought, oh God, I can do it,
Yeah.
I think that Lucy, we recorded all the skull stuff with Will. I had to read in the skull for Lucy. She did it because it's me going, death is coming, like in a cod sort of skull voice. And I kept going up to her and going, is that okay? Do you want me to do it a different way? She's like, no, it's fine. She just nailed it. She just nailed it. But it was actually me she was doing it with. And then I find amazing. Jonathan, the writer, nailed it when he came in to do his cafe
Oh, yeah.
and poured his milk. He did it so natural. I think that was the middle of the night. He did that brilliantly. Cam getting tortured, he nailed it, because that's really hard to sustain, being strapped to a chair, looking scared, and that level of fear. I think he nailed it. I could go on forever. And then I've already said Ivano and Lockwood, I think they nailed that scene. Yeah, loads of nailing.
I want you to go on about it forever, but I know I'm trying to be conscious of the time. Yeah, it's really funny to hear that Cameron had that self-doubt, just because I know, like, just from talking to Complete Fiction, how much they searched far and wide for a Lockwood, and he was the perfect one after all that time, so it's interesting to hear. Our next question.
It's called Lockwood Co. It's called Lockwood again. He's got to carry that. I think there was a sense of he felt he'd got to carry the whole production. And so sometimes I said, well, look, you're in it. We're all, like Will said earlier, it was a great team. The crew were amazing. Everybody was there. But that's, he's a young actor, and it's frightening.
Yeah, loads of pressure, definitely. Yeah, I definitely want to hear more, but I'll move on. Let's see. Our next question comes from Dithledon on TikTok. They ask, Hayley, what is your favorite memory on set with the rest of the cast specifically? So I think we've asked about your favorite memory in general, but with the rest of the other actors.
I would say, hands down, my favorite memory was our last day of shooting. Because even though it was me and Ali, it was like episode 7, our sort of interior boat scenes. It was the last sort of official day of shooting the show, and then afterwards it was like sort of second unit shooting stuff. So at the end of that, I officially wrapped, but then Ruby and Cameron came, and Joe came, and Naira was there, Laura was there, Bradley was there. Everyone came, and it was an official like wrap, and it was so special. Like Joe gave a big speech about sort of the last 9 months, and we all got given presents, and it was special for me, but I think it was also more so special to watch, like to hear about how it's been over the last 9 months, and to hear sort of Cameron and Ruby and Ali and sort of what they've all been through, and seen their journey, and seen them sort of finally sort of finish this project. Yeah, it was just such a great time. We took lots of pictures. I think someone jumped in the, no, did someone jump in the pool? No, that's just
I feel somebody jumped.
I feel like someone jumped in the pool, but
I feel like somebody jumped in the water.
Something jumped in the water, but it was such a lovely, like, sort of like last day. We all came together, took pictures. It was great. It was fun. Yeah,
that's so lovely. What a wonder! It sounds like a wonderful time.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay, so our next question is for Will. Little Bit of Everything, Little Bit on Instagram asks, the scene with the monks in episode 3 is one of the spookiest in the show. Can you tell us a little bit about your process for filming that?
I'm very happy that's got the mantle of being spookiest, because there's a lot of spooky stuff. So thank you for that. I like to daydream quite a lot, and I'll read the scripts and then just sort of disappear into my imagination of what could this look like, and what does it feel like, and how do we shoot this in a way that does the words justice. And on this sequence, I worked with a storyboard artist called Lizzie Hammond Hunt, who I've done a lot of work with. And we basically drew up a whole scene of how to visualize these monks and how to stage the action, especially because it's not really, they're using their swords, but it's not a fight scene. It's more about trying to defend yourself against these monks. And obviously their chanting adds a lot, sound adds a lot to it as well in terms of the atmosphere and the tone. I think there's a picture of me on set next to the big printed out storyboards that we'd sort of satisfyingly crossed off as we've got each one as we go. I very much like design a sequence and tailor. I don't like to just turn up and work it out or just, you know, see what works. I very much have an idea of how I'd like things to look, and then open-minded to surprises. And, you know, you'll always find something or you have to lose a shot to save a bit of time. But yeah, a sequence like that was a lot of fun to do. And we had a few sequences in that Fairfax episode where they had to be really designed. The kind of, it was I guess the most haunted mansion episode in a way, because they're having to go on this journey through the house and the ghosts are getting worse and worse. It was a fun episode to do. And again, that one in terms of location, and location always being integral, the setting really setting the tone. Bizarrely, that location was a medieval barn that we then in post replaced the ceiling to, but it was generally used, and I've been to it as a wedding venue. So I was stood there with everyone dressed in their monks doing this incredible spooky kind of performance, and their physicality that Jen had brought to them with her kind of the physical choreography of it all. And I was like, I've been here as a wedding venue. This is all very unusual. And then when we were there to recce it, there were locations going, and there were loads of Christmas trees in it, because it's a wedding venue in the summer, and then they sell Christmas trees in the winter. So not really what you expect from a satanic monks at Coombe Hall, but yeah, behind the scenes, fun stuff.
You entirely transformed that barn. We had no idea. I just realised, well, someone's brought to my attention. We didn't ask you what your favourite or most challenging scene was, Will.
Did we not? Okay.
We didn't. Well, I mean, unless you didn't want to talk about it.
I think I probably thought about it and then assumed I'd said it.
Yeah.
No, I did. We did, because I talked about bumping into Ruby and
yes. Okay, we did. Okay. Never mind. We've got it. You guys, we're on track. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it is nearly midnight where I am, so if I
was going to say it's late where you are.
That would be why.
Okay. Let's see. That was okay. I think. Yeah. So we've got 2 questions left, and then Will, you a bit late where you are. Definitely understand. Our next question is for Gilly. Sarah Halpin 2019 on Instagram asks, in what ways did you differentiate between the characters' physicality to make each of them so distinct in the way they move and carry themselves? Because we talk about Lockwood swagger a lot, but I know, like with George too, he has a very particular way of standing. Hayley's talked about it a bit as well. Yeah.
Well, I can't take the credit. It's all the brilliant Jennifer White. I'm sorry, but it is. It's her. So she worked with all the actors' physicality in that 6-week rehearsal period, and then we built on that and enhanced it when she'd worked with them. But obviously, they all did swordmanship every day. I think they did it every afternoon in that 6 weeks. So interestingly enough, he slouches naturally. I would say he's got a very relaxed pose. He doesn't hold himself like an actor. A lot of actors like present themselves shoulders back, head up. And Ali's not like that. And sometimes I would go in the set and say I'd say to Joe, oh, he's slouching at the table. And he'd say, no, leave him. And he was so right, because it makes Ali so real. Because actually he wouldn't be sitting at the table, upright. He would be slouching. He's at home, he's relaxed. I think a scene that highlights the difference between them all physically. It's one of yours, Will. It's episode 3, when they're on their way to have their interview at Fairfax Iron. So they're walking as a three down the road. Lucy's sort of relaxed, but she looks quite aware. She looks like she could reach for a sword and, take it out if needed. Lockwood's swaggering along, very confident, enjoying being looked at. And then Ali's got his hands in his pockets, sort of bumbling along. And I just think that scene sums up the characters, because physically they are all so different. The physicality obviously is also in the face, and we worked a lot. When Cam's tense, his top lip gets tense, so we would get a pencil, and bless him, reaching for a pencil, and we'd have to do this, like getting to strengthen his top lip, because his tension would just go to his lips. But if his tension wasn't there in his face, of course he's got that brilliant smile, and he has got a dazzling smile. So tiny details in physicality, and that's it really. I can't think if there's anything else. We was basically working with Jen, and then they carried on enforcing that, and not correcting Ali, not making him neat, letting him sludge. And then I think with Hayley, just you had a confident swagger. I think you've got the most confident swagger, and reminding her of that, be cocksure. I remember you were doing a scene with Ruby, and she was being really polite and slowing down to let Ruby catch her up. I was like, no, keep walking, make her walk faster. Keeping her confident, making her be arrogant almost in your movement, which isn't naturally what you would do.
Yeah, it's really funny how you added in some places and just didn't stop in other places. Like, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. This is for everyone. We know that you're all accomplished professionals outside of the show. So do you have any upcoming projects you can share with us, or maybe just a favorite project you'd like to talk about? Let's start with
looking at Will at this point, because we're dying to know what he's doing at 12 o'clock.
Well, it was sort of alluded to in the introduction, but so I'm working on two things at the moment: in production one and in pre-production the other, starting to plan the next one. The current one that I'm shooting is a sequence of short films announcing a Stranger Things experience. The first one with Millie Bobby Brown starring it is coming out, I think, next week. So really it's not TV drama, they're like promotional, they're adverts. So I, have a lot of fun working in advertising, where I also get to adapt books. I did a Pride and Prejudice commercial for the new Audible adaptation. So it's a lot of fun. And then once I'm out of Stranger Things world, I am going into Treasure Island world to direct 2 episodes of their new 6-part series for Paramount. Might not even be announced, so good thing.
We won't tell anyone.
Staying between us, but yeah, that's what I'll be doing in Tenerife as of the start of next year. So looking forward to that as well.
Tenerife.
Yeah,
That's so exciting.
And I promised to make it gothic and spooky as well. So the original book, it isn't the way it's been adapted previously. It's got dirt under its fingernails and it's strangely gothic. So that will be there in our version of it.
You've hooked us already by being on the project, but that's added bonus.
Yeah.
My work is not seen because I do coaching online, so it's just not seen. Yes, anyone wants any coaching, contact me. And I've been looking after my dad, bless him, who passed away this year. So for the last year, I've been a carer. So I haven't got anything. I've been living that. But on Monday, I'm filming Call the Midwife as an actor. Blink and you miss me. Blink and you miss me. But that's been my life. So I'm just waiting to see what comes now and embracing life. That's what you've got to do.
We're so excited. We'll keep an eye out. We'll be the first to know about it. You might not even know yet. We're very good that way as a community.
Oh, I'm sure.
Hayley?
For me, so last year, I've been back in the theatre world. Yeah, so last year I toured doing Macbeth, and I played Malcolm, which was, yeah, so that's my first Shakespeare, which was very, very interesting, very fun. So that was like my first half of the year. And I've just been writing as well, which is really exciting. So with my director friend writing, so we're cooking up some stuff. So nothing of yet, and I'm auditioning. So anything that comes up, I'll definitely share on my socials. So yeah, that's a bit about me
Well, we
and
look
loving
forward to it.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely post on your socials too, because I don't know if you know this, but we show up at all the shows. I, Ali and Ruby could probably tell you, but at least some cohort of the community is always goes to the
Oh,
show. So let us know
Did you
and we'll
go
be
to
there.
Chichester? Did you go and see Ali in Chichester doing
Yeah, he did. Oh, what was it called? Antigone
Lord
on
of the
Strike.
Flies?
Lord of the Flies. Oh yes, I saw.
Oh, yeah, yeah. He
Oh,
was just recently. I wasn't there, but some of us were. We had some
Right.
representation there. Yeah, I saw him in Antigone on Strike back in February, and that was really cool. And we saw Ruby in um what was it called? But it was about
Stars.
D&D.
Oh no, maybe not.
I've forgotten the name, but it was really good. We really enjoyed it. So yeah, let us know and we'll be there. We show up. Um, so that is all of our questions. Um, and so we are going to go into some we've got some shout outs to do. We've got to announce some raffles, um, some other exciting news, and we've got a few special messages from people who you might recognize who couldn't be here today. So if you need to go, Will, I know you are probably exhausted. So if you guys need to sign off, you're welcome to. If you'd like to stay on, you're welcome to as well. Entirely up to you. So moving into the finale of our ClusterCon, once again, our sincerest gratitude to everyone who joined us today, from our wonderful guests to our fantastic team, to all of you watching at home. Everyone has been essential in making this event happen. So thank you very much. It took a team of over 30 people to put this together. The people you see, Cassie and I right now, drop in the bucket compared to the effort that went into this. If you'll permit us, we'd like to take a few moments to shout out some people in particular. So first,
Yeah, one of LockNation's hardest workers and most committed fans, Deb, who many of us know and love. She does a bunch of conventions, if you guys have ever seen any of that. She was supposed to be an interviewer on the design panel, but she was unable to join us due to health reasons. So please join me in sending whatever prayers or positive vibes you feel comfortable giving her to have a safe and swift recovery.
we love you, Deb. She's definitely watching. Knowing her. I'd also like to shout out George's Gazetteer team for putting together the incredible between panel compilation we on Team ClusterCon like to call complete nonfiction. Their work was really remarkable. And thank you to everyone in the community who contributed.
And a special thanks to Lena and Chris for taking over the Zoom and live stream responsibilities at the 11th hour and making everything look so polished and professional. They've done an incredible job.
Finally, to thank you to all of our lead organizers. I really want to shout out Kath and Caitlin especially. They've been working tirelessly to keep everyone on track and make sure all of this comes together. So that's it for our production panel. So thank you so much to our guests for taking the time to talk to us today. We're going to move on to some of our other items, but again, if you need to pop off, feel free to do so. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank
This
you
was
for having us.
amazing.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we just have a few announcements. First, after many requests for it, we are so excited to announce that for a limited time only, you can purchase ClusterCon merch over at the 35 Portland Row Shop. We've put together a great collection of items for you to celebrate and help support ClusterCon. And we want to assure you that Team ClusterCon will not be taking any of the profits. We're just volunteers of our time, and all the proceeds will go towards funding future LockNation endeavors.
Excellent. That's Cassie's store, by the way, for those of you who don't know.
Yes.
Very good. So now we've got our raffle winners coming up. Drum roll. I'm not going to do that because there's a microphone, but picture it in your head. We have our Type 3 prize, which is one of the incredible special edition Lockwood Co box sets released by Lit Pins recently. So very exciting. Type 2 prize is a ClusterCon 2025 tote bag filled with a fantastic selection of LockNation ClusterCon swag. Deb, who we mentioned, was instrumental in putting that together and, as always, did an excellent job. And the Type 1 prize is a small ClusterCon pouch, also filled with LockNation swag. We've randomly generated the winners from the entries we received, and the lucky winners are...
So congratulations to all of our winners. Yay. We'll be reaching out to you shortly to facilitate that. And thanks again to everyone who joined us today. We hope this has been a proper celebration for everyone out there who loves the work of Jonathan Stroud, Complete Fiction, and every member of the cast and crew. We'd like to extend our gratitude to them for creating this extraordinary fictional world in which we've all found a home.
Last but certainly not least, we have a couple of video messages from some guests that were unable to join us today, but wanted to send their regards to everyone watching. At least one of them might look familiar to you. So that's it from us. Wherever you are in the world, we wish you a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. And of course, always remember to stay just reckless enough.
Greetings, LockNation. I'm Joe.
I'm Alexis.
We're from The Flight. We did the music for the Lockwood Co TV show for Netflix. I'm sorry we can't be at ClusterCon this year.
But thanks for the invite.
Yeah, have a lovely time. It was brilliant to work in this world doing the music for the show, and what was amazing was also seeing the fan response and an amazing group of fans. So you make our job worthwhile. Thank you.
Hello, lovely Lockwood & Co fans. I am so sorry I can't be there today. I'm gutted I can't be in your presence, but I've seen some of the amazing panelists that you have assembled, and well, I'm very jealous that I can't be there, because also I'm sure they will drop some pearls of wisdom and brilliant stories. So yeah, very jealous. I've been reflecting on what to say in this video. Because, you know, the shoot ended over 3 years ago now, and it's a long time ago, and I've just been thinking about what has kind of stuck with me from the shoot, and random things stick with you, like the smells of the rooms in Portland Row, like how the kitchen always smelled amazing, and how the corridor and the living room and the bedrooms always smelled like old books, but in a nice cozy way. And I think another thing that, like, the main thing that kind of sticks with me about that job was just the kind of love between the cast and the crew, and also the love that we received from all of you amazing fans. I just remember I was 19 when I got that job, completely out of my depth, not knowing what I was doing at all. I mean, I still don't, but I just think on a job like that, which was so massive, felt so big at the time, the amount of love and kindness and patience that I received from my co-workers and you fans I'll be forever grateful for. So thank you. What to share? I'm really waffling on, but I just wanted to share quickly. I just wanted to say hello with Franklin. I am taking good care of him, and he is taking good care of me. I just wanted to share 2 books. The Screaming Staircase and The Empty Grave. You can see I don't take good care of books. That's my way of loving them. I dog ear the pages and break the spines. Just because I want to read it. I want to properly get into it. Anyways, I think The Empty Grave might be my favourite book of the series. And I remember reading it halfway through, and when George gets beaten up, I was so convinced George was going to die. So, yeah, I'm grateful he didn't, and he lives on, and probably solves all the questions about everything and becomes... We were thinking... Sorry, this is a tangent, but we were thinking about what George might become. And I've always thought that he will go on to become like a scholar. And, be a professor and talk about the origins of the problem. But that's my theory. I'd love to hear any of yours. And also, I just came across my copy of The Screaming Staircase, and I remember, again, getting this massive job, stressing out, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? This is so... Like, I was trying to do everything I possibly could to, not mess it up completely. Just so worried. And I read this book and annotated any scraps of information I could. For example, this is the scene when Lucy enters Portland Road for the first time, and we're interviewing her. And I've written George. I was backwards, you can't read it. But I've written George annoying tea sips, because it's saying that she can hear the slurps of tea sounding from George's sofa. And I was like, okay, maybe we could bring that into the role. I also love this line that Lucy has. Everything about him made me livid about George. So just I remember thinking about forming that relationship with Lucy in the earlier episodes particularly, and how, they need to go from enemies to best friends at the end of episode 8, and that's the kind of journey between them. And the final thing I'll share, sorry, I'm really waffling on, but was I've just written scruffy here because there's a description of George that I really love. He slouched, he slumped, he scuffed his way about the house like something soft about to melt. His shirt was always untucked, his trainers extra big, the laces trailing. I've seen reanimated corpses with better deportment than George. And that flop of hair and those silly glasses, everything about him irritated me. I just underlined all of that, and I remember thinking, okay, we can bring that to the character. There's loads of them in here, because I just tried to get any kind of scrap of information I could to help with the character. But anyways, thank you all for all your support, not only when the show came out, but continuously now, which is insane. I hope you all have an amazing day. I don't know when this is being played, but you're all absolute legends, and sending lots of love.